So today we have an amazing guest with us. There's just so much madness going on in the world. Like, have y'all noticed? There's a lot of divorce going on, a lot, from people that we never, ever, ever expected. And, so I was like, you know what, like we need to have a segment, with a man and a man that I know. I have known this man for a while, and he is married to a very good friend of mine, and the man is just a man, for real. Like, you know how when they say a man, he is a man, and then he's a man of God. And his wife just asked me to send the link, so I'm doing that now, right now. Don't worry, girl, I've got you. Anyway, he is a pillar, truly, in his home, and so I really thought that I could get him on the show today. His name is Adebayo Emmanuel Martins. Is a man of varied sides. As a writer, he is the author of Crumbs and an inspirational book, which has been attested to by many as being a blessing. He also inspires his readers and a growing number of contacts via his blog post at bayormartins.blogspot.com. You can get his book here, and I pretty much put the website here in the show notes, okay? As a musician and producer, he has 3 albums and several singles to his credit. His works are on iTunes and all digital platforms as Bayor Martins. He believes in glorifying God by giving and serving with the various gifts with which he has been imbued. His okay, I cannot pronounce that word, and I'm working on a PhD. See, I am not as intelligent as I thought. But anyway, the acronym for B.A.Y.O.R is an acronym for Break All Your Old Records, and that also doubles as his personal goal. Wow. Bayo is married to Aderomoke, and they are blessed with 2 wonderful daughters. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, our topic today is the definition of a good and godly man. And I bring to you Minister Bayo. Hello.
Hi. Lydia, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here under such notice. That is my middle name. I put everyone on high jump. But you're used to that. You are exactly. You're used to that. So speaking of high jump, like we're just gonna get straight into it. Speaking of high jump, marriage is a high jump. And it's a lot of high jumping, and it seems to get higher and higher at different levels of a married person's life. And so I just really wanted you to speak to married couples today, but specifically to the men, because it pretty much just seems like a lot of men know what to do, but they don't know how to do it. So I wanted you to speak to the heart of men today, and I know that the women are listening. Definition of a good and godly husband. I am going to take a bow now, and you could just talk as long as you want. I'm not going to be asking as many questions. Once in a while, I will ask, but you have 40 minutes. Take it away.
Wow. This seems to me like, just walking into a room full of maybe like, let's say 1,000 people, and you're handed the mic and say, okay, here you go, start speaking. And I'm like, wait, what? Well, I want to say thank you for the opportunity, and I don't take it for granted that this sort of a platform is provided for me. First of all, I want to put out a disclaimer. This is supposed to be the definition of a godly man, and then I'm like, whoa, definition. That's a tall order. And, well, I'm not surprised it's coming from someone that likes to put people on high jump, because that's quite a high bar. But you said something, or she said something just moments ago when you said it's like there's a lot of the divorce rate is just climbing higher and higher, and I think I want to start with what you just said, the high expectation. I think we need to begin to know how to manage our expectations in the first place. Now, as a husband, what are your expectations? As a wife, what are your expectations of the marriage? Were this clarified before we even got into the marriage? Were your goals, were your expectations, were they properly defined before we got into the marriage? Okay, let's say that they were properly defined. When we come into marriage, there's always, it's as though life throws us a curveball and we begin to see situations, well, life just happens. So for me, I want to look at this from several aspects. And I'm talking from the aspect of being a husband as God has helped me to be. I can say along the way, I didn't really get it right at the first. I didn't really know everything I know now. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning on the job. But I didn't know everything. I didn't know what I know now until I think it was in 2020 when I had to be away from my wife for a while. And then I think that experience sort of threw a mirror in front of me, and I saw myself, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't think you're doing a good job. So let me go back a little, and I think I have this on our YouTube channel, on my wife's YouTube channel, where we narrated the story of how we met. And before I had met my wife, I sort of was affirming the kind of woman I wanted to marry. And do you know, it took almost a year. I did that for almost a year. I kept saying, my wife is this, my wife is that. And I have that list on my blog also. So there was a particular year towards the end, I think this was this was towards the end of the year, I was affirming my wife, which was going to be, I kept having this nudge to actually write a letter to my wife, an open letter. So since I was a blogger, I decided to put it on my blog. And I called it an open letter to Mrs. Bayor Martins. So somebody read, or several people read that and said, wait, are you married? I said, no, not yet. And they were like, honestly, I thought you were married because I didn't even know you had children. And I remember one thing a lady said, whoever is going to marry you must read this because the person needs to know who the kind of woman she is going to become. Now, this story ties back to what I said earlier about expectations. As the man, who are you expecting? Who are you expecting? What are you expecting from the marriage? And if you tie that into what I said earlier also about myself, if you're expecting someone, let's imagine that you're expecting someone to have so and so qualities, then the next question should be, who do I need to become to attract that kind of a person? So after I sent out that blog and everything, interestingly, my wife now actually also saw that and she was like, oh, is he married? It's funny how things play out. I think somehow after I'd put out the blog, and sometime down the line, it occurred to me, I was like, wait a minute, who do I need to become to attract this kind of a woman? I remember it was later, sometime after my wife lost her dad, and she was not in church for a while. I was talking to a friend, and we just mentioned the name, and I told the guy, I said, if not that she's in a relationship, that is my wife. Now, I didn't even know her that well. I had not known her. I would not spoken at length. I've not gone on a date or anything with her. But I just said, if not that she's in a relationship, that is my wife. You know, I had already given up that, okay, she's in a relationship, it's not going to work out. But you can find out how things worked out if you check out her YouTube channel, Aderomoke Martins. You'll see all of that story. But back to the point. When we got married, and shortly after we got married, after we had our first daughter, and she had to move to travel, I had a time when I was alone back home in Africa, and she was in the States. And then it was long distance, and I think there were some times that it just dawned on me that I'm not really doing a good job. That period sort of brought some introspection for me, and I began to learn. I began to learn and unlearn. Now, before this period happened, I had picked up a book that I would want to recommend every husband listening. And I think it's called The Power of a Praying Husband. And before my wife left, I had read the book, and we also, together, we jointly read 2 other books. One was An Exemplary Husband, and for her, it was An Excellent Wife. So there are 2 books, Exemplary Husband, Excellent Wife. I can't remember the name of the authors now, but you could Google those up. And then we both read Love and Respect. Now, all of what I've said about these books is pointing to one thing: the need for knowledge. As the husband, life doesn't come with a manual, but there are instances people have gone through some of the things we will go through. So it's just imperative for us to learn from their mistakes, learn from their good sides also, and take from those experiences and sort of build into what we want to see and what we want to become. Now, from what I had written in the blog story I posted in the open letter to my wife, sort of I had some expectations, and I wanted to be the person that will have that kind of a woman. And if for those that may not know my wife, she's an amazing woman. As in, she's simply amazing. I think she defines amazing. She's an excellent wife, and she defines amazing. Now, for me to be the kind of husband that will allow her to shine, I needed to do some upgrading on my own end. So when we were apart for a while, I sort of saw myself in the mirror, and I was like, wait, guy, you need to work on some things. And I began the process of learning and becoming and just gaining more wisdom. So let me let's see if I can whittle this down into 7 areas that we can grow. Because trust me, if it must be, it is up to me. If every man looks at it from, okay, if this thing has to happen, then it is up to me. So I will talk about this from 2 aspects: you as an individual, and then you as a husband. So for you as an individual, there are 5 areas. There are several areas that you need to build up: your faith, areas of your faculty, which is knowledge. I have touched on that already. Areas of your fitness, your physical and health, because that also plays a role in a marriage. Then area of finances, then area of your fields of endeavor, your career, the family itself, the family unit, areas of the I talked about fitness, areas of friendships, and I think those are the areas. I will just mention those ones. I want to delve into it, but the area I want to talk about is about being a husband. And let's see if we can draw out principles from you just being a husband, from the word husband itself. Now, it's interesting to note that husband sort of, if I think, even from the dictionary, it sort of connotes manager, not boss, not leader, but manager. I've even seen where it's used in some instances as somebody husband, that the guy husbands his resources well. And it's not too far-fetched when you see husbandry. Sort of, it brings to mind the issue of cultivating. So as a husband, you are more or less like a coach. You are a cultivator. You are somebody that makes things to grow. If you look at how it even started from the Bible, when God introduced Adam into Eden, he was called to nurture, to tend, and to care for it. God gave him a job before he gave him a woman. So being a husband is a call to responsibility. It's a call to grooming. Isn't it interesting that there's a bride and there's a bridegroom? And grooming is like taking care. You are trying to make something look better. So the husband, you have that responsibility of making your wife better. And I think it's only someone that is secure in himself that we want a woman to shine. Because when the woman is shining, the woman doesn't take all of the glory or everything, or all of the fame, all of the shine. It actually speaks about the belief of the man. Because if you are secure yourself, then the woman can really thrive in the home. I think it's a put down on any man that the wife becomes worse in terms of visions and goals and everything just by being married. I don't think that is how things should play out. Because if a building is standing very tall, you may not see the foundation. but the building standing to the foundation's strength. So if a wife can flourish under a man's leadership, that says a lot about the man. So as a husband, first of all, you are the head. Let's take H. You are the head. So what are the things you find in the head? You find the eyes, you find ears, nose, the mouth. As the man, you should have the vision to see where the marriage is going to, see what do you want to become for yourself. Because if you're saying, I'm the head, you have to follow me. First of all, if you have to say, don't you know I'm the head of this house, then you are not. If you are the head of the house, you don't need to announce it. Because if your brain has to remind, if a brain you can see is not functioning. If a brain is functioning, every brain that is functioning at least should be invisible. But if you have to always show yourself that you are the head boss, if you are always trying to prove a point, you don't have one. Then look at the ears. The ears are for listening. Somebody said jokingly that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth because you should listen twice as much as you speak. So how much are you listening to what your wife is saying? How much are you listening to what your wife is not saying? Because sometimes a wife's silence actually speaks louder than when she's saying something. And sometimes she's saying something, but you should hear what she's not saying. And also there's the mouth that speaks. How much of affirmation do you give to your wife? The man came when at the first instance of a marriage, when Adam met Eve, the woman did the listening, the man did the speaking. So the rules haven't changed. The man still sees. The man wants to see some things, but the woman wants to hear some things. The woman, it's unbelievable how much your words mean to your wife. And may I even pause here to just, quite frankly, when I got married, my respect for women deepened. Now, understand that I grew in a home of about 4 strong, powerful African women, and beautiful inside and out. So I was introduced to the concept of beauty and strength of a woman from a very young age. My mom also is a combination of all of my 4 sisters, and she's just amazing. But it's surprising how much women take on. You know, their body literally changes after they have to give birth to a child. There's just so much that a woman has to carry by just being a woman. If I begin to bleed, maybe if I have a cut and the bleeding lasts for a while, I'm already concerned. They have to deal with bleeding every month. And I'm like, wait, there's enough happening already by the mere fact that she's a woman. But there's so much that God has given to women that God needs a man that understands who these women are, what he has created them to be, for the women to thrive. And that brings us to the second aspect, the you. We talk about H being the head, the you being understanding. Understand your assignment. Like I said earlier, it's you being a manager. You are managing the resources. You are managing, and sometimes the resources are intangible. They are emotions. You're managing emotions. You're managing the atmosphere in the home. You're managing the future. You're managing expectations. You know, the woman may not say everything, but she has expectations. How are you managing that? It comes from a place of understanding. And someone said, if you understand your role as a husband, it's good to note that to be an effective husband, you have to know how to be a good wife. Now, that sounds like, okay, what exactly is it saying? The Bible says that Christ to marriage, being that the husband and the wife is like Christ and the church. Christ is the head, is a husband of the bride, which is the body of Christ. So that if a man fully understands his position as the head of the home and as a disciple of Christ, you know, looking up to Jesus, trusting God for that direction, it makes it a lot easier to lead and to be the head of the home. Now, moving on to S. Now, you can say S is servant leadership or even submission. Submission is not something that the wife is expected to do. The Bible says, submit yourselves one to another. Like we said earlier, if you have to always emphasize that this woman must submit to me, I think it's easier sometimes let's look at how Jesus went about it. He said, you call me your leader, and you're right. But look at how I am serving you as a servant leader. I think it's Mark 10:44 that says that the greatest in the kingdom must be the servant of all. Let's take that to heart for a minute. How exactly are you leading? There's a way you can lead by allowing other people to, by being secure yourself. I think we said that earlier. So submission, being a servant leader, submitting one to another. No, like we said earlier, no woman was going to follow a parked car. If you're going somewhere, it's easier for her to submit to your mission if you are going somewhere. So we talked about being the head, being having understanding, and then submission. Then I want to use the word bridge. Be the bridge between who she is and who she desires to be. You know, if a woman comes into your home, let's look at it for example. The woman comes into the house. Now, in most cases, the woman drops a name and picks up your name. How is that? What is she going to benefit from laying that down to come into your sort of your domain? What is she going to benefit from by doing that? Now, like I said earlier at the beginning, I'm looking at this from the little understanding I have about being a husband, and from the fact that if you're taking somebody on a journey, like marriage is a journey, if you're taking somebody on a journey and saying, okay, we're going to go in this direction, what are you expecting that person to be? Because, like we said, marriage is about expectations. The woman is also coming in believing that, okay, this man has a drive. I don't expect him to be here 10 years from now. So you also are not expecting her to be on the same level 10 years from now. So what exactly? Be the bridge. Sometimes you be the one to provide the resources, be the one to open her up, lead by example, be the one to say, okay, you know what, I think in this area, in communication, this is what you should do. In negotiation, this is what you should do. There are things you can see because, for example, there are some things that only your husband can tell you. There are things that only your wife can tell you. What's your mind state when your wife says, I think you have a little bit of laziness or you have a little bit of reluctance in doing this, or you can tell your wife, I think you are slacking in this area. Both of you can tell. I tell my wife, I said, see, we've come this far in this journey. If we can't tell ourselves the truth, then there's a problem. If we cannot tell ourselves that, okay, see, at this stage, this is what you are not doing right. Let's tell us. I said, if at this point we have to start. If I have to start looking for a way to tell you the truth, then there's a problem. Because the Bible says they were naked and not ashamed. We should be able to look at ourselves in the eye and say, okay, nobody else is going to tell us this, but we should be able to tell ourselves the truth. So be the bridge between who she is now and who she should be. And also being the bridge means standing in the gap. You know, sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, when before traveled and we had some time of separation, I was really asking God, how exactly can I make this thing work? And it just occurred to me that it's difficult for you to disrespect or to despise someone you are actively praying for. If you're actively praying for your wife or you're actively praying for your husband, it's difficult to just see things and, you know, and I don't mean praying from a place of God, change him or change her. No, let it be a place of, okay, God, help her to be this, help her to be that. Somehow, when you begin to go to God about things in your life that you want to change, it's easy for God to show you things that you need to change to make that thing to happen. And I believe that when I began to pray for my wife, those are the times that I began to change. And it's funny because we think we're trying to pray for our wives to change. Actually, God works on our own heart to see that, okay, you are asking her to be more decisive in this area. Why don't you create the avenue by doing this? You know, sometimes you begin to mirror what you want to see in your wife. You're taking the lead. Somehow she just catches on. My wife now reads. In fact, now if my wife should go into a bookstore with $1,000, it's going to be by prayer that she doesn't come out owing money on books. Because she just buys books. She's such an avid reader now. And it's funny, I was telling her the other day, I call you diva, and backward, that's avid. I said, maybe I've been saying you're going to be an avid reader without knowing, but now she's so much into books. She's such a researcher. She's a go-getter. It makes me, I'm like, wow, this is, for me, it's a joy that this was not her when we got married, but now this is her inspiring me by the way she lives. And she tells me I'm the one inspiring her to read. And I'm like, oh, really? But the truth of the matter is that because God helped me to understand, be the bridge, talk to God. Like there's one particular area I asked God for. I said, God, I want godly friends around her. I want you to put godly women around this woman. Why? Because in the environment she was teaching, she was the one people were coming to. And most times she got off a call, she was mostly drained because she would get off the call and she had encouraged people, she had spoken to people's lives. She was now needing the strength and and I was like, God, I don't mind doing this, but I need people that can speak into her life. I need like minds, iron sharpening iron. And God answered prayer. God brought amazing women in her life. Amazing women. Omenesa is one of those answered prayers. God brought those. Now, sometimes answers to prayers are not people that come newly. They're those people that come from a different perspective. And that's what I've seen God do in her life. So we've spoken about being the head, about understanding, about submission, about being the bridge. Then have an attitude for gratitude for what you even have in the wife. If you have anything you appreciate, always appreciate. What you don't appreciate, depreciates. Like we said about being the head, affirm your wife. Speak to what she's already doing well, the good that you can see already. Speak to it already. Speak to that. Let's call out what she can become. Because everybody has talent in some area. Everybody has potential. When we speak to those things, what you keep saying, you will keep seeing. If, like one thing that we try to avoid in our home, and my wife taught me this very well, is that you will never hear her speak something she doesn't want to see. Sometimes, even when children push her to the wall, she says, look at this blessed children, because she teaches young children. She says, look at this blessed. Now, she's angry, but she's calling them blessed, because she understands that power of life and death is in the tongue. So, that way she's talking about appreciating. You speak, and it's not surprised that she has a book on affirmations. Childlike affirmations is on Amazon, and it's changing children's lives. I've seen it firsthand in my own children, our daughters, and I've seen other people that have bought the books sending her videos and saying we appreciate what this book is helping our children to be. You see people that are shy, children that are shy, they stand tall, they're bold, they're courageous because they hear themselves saying it. What you keep saying, you keep seeing. So affirm in your wife who you want her to become. Draw out the queen in her. If you treat her like a queen, she will treat you like a king. And then the other aspect, or the other word, nurture. We've talked about it. I've touched on it briefly earlier. But nurture the greatness you want to see in your wife. Nurture the greatness you want to see in your wife. Nurture the greatness you want to see in your wife. If you provide the environment, like we said earlier, when God introduced both of them, the husband and the wife, God gave the man an assignment. I say this way, that the assignment and the assessment came before the assistant. If as the man, if you're not fully understanding of your assignment, you may not know how to nurture the person that God is giving you to help you. And I think I may even want to say this. Maybe it's because society has defined marriage as something that happens at a particular stage. It's not really about marriage should happen at a particular age. It should be at a particular stage. I think, let me rephrase that. Marriage happens at a stage and not necessarily at an age. There are some people that are old enough to get married, but they are not matured enough. They're not got to that stage to be able to handle what marriage is going to throw at them down the line. So a proper understanding of, okay, what exactly am I going into? And I believe it starts with me. If I'm the husband, it starts with you as a husband. It starts with me as a husband. What exactly am I trying to achieve? I remember one time when it seemed as if I was taking too long to get married. And I told somebody, I said, if you are building a skyscraper and if you are building a bungalow, in the time it would take to build 2 or 3 or even 4 bungalows, the skyscraper may still be at the foundation stage. But if you're coming from a far off distance, you would point to the skyscraper and say, can you get to that building? If you can get to that building, then you can get to so and so place. I want my marriage to be a landmark, and I'm still working, and that is still a work in progress. Now, to round up, the D is for being diligent. Be diligent. There are many words that we can use for D, but be diligent, and this diligence now is now not about the wife. Now it's about you. Be diligent to develop yourself, to become who exactly you can be. Because the more of a good person you become, the more you create the environment for your wife to thrive and to flourish. So to wrap up, I would say that we can't really be everything we want to be as husbands. We can't do all of this by ourselves, because if marriage was instituted by God, if God designed marriage, then there's a reason or there's a way to go about it. All we need to do is to refer to the manual. I know that it may not be mainstream, because if you check what's happening sometimes on TV, people's like, okay, you know what, this is not working, I'm gonna check out. But there are other people. I learned recently about a guy that said, I take my marriage vows seriously. And this is someone that has been married to a troubled young lady. Or, well, not so young anymore, because she's had some issues with her health and everything, but they've stuck it together. I've seen, my wife and I were in a marriage ceremony recently where you see people 40 years in marriage. And I'm like, really? In a place of the world where you think divorce is just something that happens every other day, you see people holding it out, sticking it out, and trusting God for their marriage to work. So the truth of the matter is, what you look for is what you see, but sometimes what you look for sometimes is what finds you. Because somebody said, if you're looking for a way to make it happen, opportunities will find you. You will find opportunities. But if you're looking for excuses will find you. So my take home will be from what I use as my sobriquet. I think that's the word my video was trying to say earlier on. So B.A.Y.O.R, break all your old records. I think I take it as a personal principle that every year assess where you are as a couple, assess where you are as individuals, and try to break your records from the previous year. God bless
you. Wow. My God. What you see or what you say is what you see. That was a major thing that I got from here. And I like how you talked about the head, you talked about the eyes, you talked about hearing, you talked about... That is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, how long have you been married?
We'll be married 70 years this year.
Wow. Can you tell me one very, very challenging fight or quarrel that both of you had, and how long it took for you to apologize, and why did it take that long or that short?
Okay, like I mentioned about the videos that we have about how we met, in one of the episodes we talked about communication. And for me, I love peace. I love peace of mind. I don't like to... For me, let me put it in the way somebody, I think is one of these animation characters. He said, I'm too lazy to hold a grudge. I don't know how to just keep something fuming. And I try to live by the scripture that says, do not let the sun go down on your wrath. If you're angry, before we go to bed, we must resolve it. No matter how steamed up we are about whatever is happening, we must resolve it. And my wife also makes this easy. My wife is someone that when she's angry, you will rarely hear her speak. She just keeps. And for me, the silence can be deafening. And I'm like, okay, let's resolve this thing now, because I need to concentrate, I need to focus. So the issue, I think, let me see. The funny thing is, because we've come up with having such a short lifespan of arguments. It's either the arguments don't linger for so long, because we know that, guy, your time starts now. Resolve this thing, because sundown is around the corner. You know that there's not enough time to muse over it and to brood over it. And let me even just say, anytime there's an argument, both of us have come to realize that the main person or the main actor behind the argument that we may have is not my wife, it's not me. It's the enemy that does not want this marriage to thrive. So we know that according to what the Bible says, I think it's in 2 Corinthians, so it said we are wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. So it's like saying that, it said the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They are mighty to God to play now imaginations. So in my mind, thoughts are sins. The devil can start whispering to you that this woman does not like you. This woman disrespects you. This woman, in fact, she's the worst thing that's happened to you. Come on. All of those thoughts, when they begin to take, if we allow the thoughts to sink in, that was exactly how, what's her name? Eve got sold into eating in the first place. She said the devil just came and sold an idea. Everything we see wrong now in the world, including jihadists, including terrorists, came as a thought. So whenever we're in a fight or maybe there's something that is happening, we are quick to realize, first of all, this argument is about, I don't know, it's a battle of thoughts. So for me, I have a principle. I want to be the first to apologize. Sometimes I even apologize for something I know I am not the one at fault in this matter. But I will say, okay, I'm sorry. Let's get this I'm sorry out of the way. And I'm like, okay, so what exactly is the problem? So sometimes, at the end of the day, she apologizes. But because for me, I see that if I'm sorry is what will make this marriage to work, let me get it out of the way. Sometimes I apologize even when I'm not the one wrong, even when I know that I actually did the right thing here. But I believe, okay, this is how I look at it. If somebody sneezes near you, sometimes some people say, oh, sorry, or maybe somebody stopped their toe. You say, oh, sorry. Now I'm telling sorry to a total stranger that I don't know who the person is, and then somebody that I love,
and the
does something
not your sneeze, and yet you're saying sorry.
It's not my. Yeah. If somebody stops their toe, you don't even know, oh, sorry about that, So that's my approach. Sorry does not take anything from me. It doesn't make me less of. And quite frankly,
say sorry, though.
Sorry?
But, there is reverb on this line. I'm so sorry. There is a delay. So when you do say sorry, though, do you strive hard not to do that thing again, or do you just say sorry and continue to do that? Because a lot of couples do that. They just say sorry, just for the sake of it, but they don't change.
In my own case, what I do is I try as much as possible to understand why. So I try to tell her, because there are times that I think that in some aspects, because of maybe from background or from just sheer habit, some things that you are just used to doing, and maybe she doesn't like it. You say, I'm so sorry. And then sometimes unconsciously you make the same mistake. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm sorry I did it. I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to get this thing not to be such a bother for me anymore, or not to be such an intrusion. And quite frankly, for me, once something begins to come up over and over as an issue, I just go to God about it. God, you created me. Teach me how to get this thing out of the way. Because I really, quite frankly, I don't, yeah. Yeah, so.
Teach me how to get it out of the way. So for a man to ask God, teach me how to get it out of the way, that means that he's not a selfish man. Because, you really have to be selfless to ask God to do the work for you and not assume that you're just going to do it at your own time. And I think that that's the problem with a lot of failing and failed marriages, is that people just do stuff at their own time. I'll apologize at my own time. I will love at my own time. I would give at my own time. I will smile at my own time. I would have sex at my own time. And, what do you think about that statement?
Yeah, what you said now is somebody said if we want to go if you want to go fast, go alone. Or if you want to go far, go together. Sometimes when something happens, we forget that marriage is not about me. It's about we. When somebody else is on board with you on the journey, it can't be all about me. There are some times I will want my time, I want me time. But really, I've seen issues or I've heard of cases where people were already headed for divorce. And they just decided, you know what, let's talk this thing through. It may just be an accumulation. You know, like somebody said, if you allow just a tiny thread, like something you use to hold pieces of garments together, if you keep taking that thread round, around, and around your finger, a point will come, it will be the finger won't be able to move. And yet it's just this tiny thread. So if we don't address issues before they begin to escalate, trust me, everything that ended up in divorce, besides the issue of maybe abuse or whatever, and all of those other things that obviously we know the person needs to be out for their own lives, for the sake of their life, but other issues that maybe irreconcilable differences, in some cases, some of those things can actually be, it could have been dealt with if everybody would just, you know what, one person has to be humble enough to say, I'm sorry. One person, and coming from their part, is, you know, men, they say men have ego and you have your self-pride. Sometimes you want to, like, don't you know I'm the man? You can't disrespect me like this. But if you look at how the Bible actually puts it, the Bible never said anything in the Bible about woman, love your husband. No. It said, men, husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husband. The truth of the matter is, when the woman respects the man sees love. When the man loves the woman sees not just love but respect. So, in my own case, if the man understands, okay, this is how this thing works in this marriage, be the first to. It doesn't take anything for you to be the first to apologize. I know some women can be, I don't know what word to use, but maybe let's say difficult. But you married her. You must have understood how she is before you got married to her. Why not you? Okay, since this is your wife, how is that? You've had times that the marriage has been sweet and rosy. What made it happen?
Mr. Bayo, we have just 60 seconds.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
So sorry. We have just 60 seconds. Just give a quick word.
Okay. I think I will go back to what I said earlier. If it must be, it is up to me.
If it must be, it is up to me.
Yes.
If it must be, it is up to me. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. I am so sorry. Like, my dashboard showed up very late. But we will definitely bring you back again, and we can talk some more about this. But everybody was blessed. I know everybody was blessed, and everybody was encouraged. I was. Thank you so much for blessing me today. And y'all, thank you so much for listening. And to your lovely wife, Aderomoke, thank you so much for allowing your husband to spill all of your business, all of you guys' business on radio. God bless you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. God bless you. Bye.